Right, so genetics in general, the basic terms are the most important terms. They're this morning. Now, be patient as a class because some people have never done this before in their lives. Others, they have minimum exposure to it. You did some Foursquare ones. Okay. Other people, I mean, they've done this before. Okay. But they also pay attention to people who've done this before because they're rusty, right? You can be rusty. So let's do this. So genetics. So science started by this guy, Gregor Mendel. Mendel was a monk. He was basically a high school monk. Okay, he was a teacher, an accountant, a gardener, statistician, an overall rather OCD person. That's what you want. Okay, but even though he's a monk, he was pretty much a scientist. So Mendel worked with simple plants like peas. The reason why is because monks had to grow food all on their own for their monasteries. Okay. Mendel was the first to record patterns of inheritance. We're talking a very detailed fellow here, right? Well, he could not explain what he saw. He did see that physical traits were passed from generation to generation. Okay? And it was really, really simple stuff. When he started his experiments, something called the blending theory was thought to be true. Here's the blending theory. Okay? A trait, okay, there's a difference between a trait and a gene, okay? These are important. Once you've got the basic vocabulary down, we're going to use it, wow, for weeks and weeks. A trait is any physical characteristic of an organism. It's physical, all right? Note it says hair color. It doesn't say brown. It's more generic, okay? Leaf color doesn't say green, right? Hair color, leaf color, plant stem height. That's what actually got the whole thing started. These stems of these pea plants had him intrigued. He says some of them grow like this tall out of the dirt. That's it. And then other people, they grow this tall out of the dirt. It was never in between. This tall or this tall. And, not much to do as a monk. So it intrigued him. A trait, any physical characteristic of an organism. The hair color, leaf color, stem height. It could be bacterial cell wall kind. I mean, it's just not just confined to plants and animals. Okay. Yeah. Dominant, recessive. Yeah. Right. So there's this dominance and recessive stuff, which or most likely you have been exposed to at some time in your life, either a map testing or Mrs. Jalon or whatever. And then there's about four other exceptions to. Then you're going to learn how to do it. So this blending theory, this is a gray area. This is a catchy situation. Okay. The blending theory stated that when traits were passed to offspring, children, or as they say in Georgia, children, from their parents, that the children would always be a perfect blend of their two parents. Now, with people, this can sort of look like this. And for large multicellular animals, cows, things like this can appear as such. But here's the problem, all right? We're going to disprove this. Mendel is going to disprove this initially, and then later we're going to go, well, actually be true, right? So it's is gray area, But the old school blending theory, the best people to talk to about, yeah, okay, yeah, this mates with this, and these kids result. You talk to a farmer. Cattle, goats, chickens, crops. Talk to a farmer. So we're talking about Mendel being the originator of the formal science. But honestly, if you've been a farmer, sorry, an agricultural engineer, so they call it now. You've been doing this. You've been doing this for a long time, but he formalized. Okay, the blending theory stated that when traits were passed from offspring from their parents, that's from offspring to offspring from their parents, that the children would always be. It's always this word here that's dangerous. Perfect. Nah, it's not perfect. Yeah, sure. Okay, a perfect blend of their two parents. Nothing is perfect. Not even in science. Okay, he's still going. He's strong. Anybody else? Need more time? Don't let me leave you behind. All right, blending theory. So here's Mendel's experiments. Mendel chose to work with pea plants because, well, it caught his eye. The monks must have liked peas in the monastery. We don't know. Mendel chose to work with pea plants because, don't die on me, because they have such a short generation time. Ah, thank you. Um, a generation time. These are vocabulary terms you'll see on the test. Not Wednesday. None of this is on Wednesday's test. You're done with Wednesday's DNA transcription and translation material. Okay, nothing new. We're just moving on. This is the time from when an organism is born to when it can reproduce. Plant puberty. That's what it is. Right? Generation time. And pea plants grow and they're ready to go, if you know what I mean. You don't have to wait. It's kind of like rats. Time from when an organism is born to when it can reproduce. So he doesn't have to wait like people 9.5 months to see what's baby Jimmy's eye color. No, he could find out in a few weeks. There you go. They grow really fast. Right? And you can tell he's a rather obsessive, compulsive, detailed person. This is who you want. We need these people in some places, okay? Scientists, air traffic control people, sure. Mendel quote, crossed or mated two pea plants together. He would take the pollen from one plant, put it on another one, and he would not have long to wait to see what their offspring would look like. He wanted to get results, and he would get results pretty fast. A good incentive to keep watering the plants, I guess. All right, generation time. Pea plants, technically almost any type of plant, they can self-pollinate or they can cross-pollinate. Plants are very different from animals when they reproduce. Okay, some plants seek only to reproduce with themselves, and they'll make what we call like a shuffled clone of themselves. Animals can't do this. Our genes are way more easily become disrupted by inbreeding. So we use sex essentially. We have to combine the what we call gametes, the sex cells, from a male and a female. But plants, you could take a simple bush and plant it on a sandbar out there in South Carolina along the coast. Okay? And you plant it and you come back, a sandbar is very tiny. And you come back a year later and there's six of them. They're all the same size and they almost all look identical. It can just copy itself. Plants can do that. Self-pollination or cross-pollination. To self-pollinate means that the plant makes a shuffled clone of itself. Essentially what I'm saying here is its unique combination of genes will be shuffled and then copied. So it's not like it won't be an identical twin of itself, but it'll be darn close. Okay? To self-pollinate means that the plant makes a shuffled clone of itself. And there's reasons for all this. To cross-pollinate means that one plant shares its gametes, its sex cells, with another plant, the same species, resulting in offspring that's a mixture of the two parents. Combine the two planets, sure. It's a mixture of the genetic material of two parents. And this could be a very, very long distance relationship. Pine trees in Washington state on the Pacific coast can, in theory, fertilize pine trees right here in Georgia. that yellow gook that is produced, the pine pollen, goes up into the jet stream, can come down all the way to Georgia, okay? Land on a pine tree, and hey, you got little pine babies, little conifer trees. You might have heard of that. Coniferous forest. That just means cones. It's an evergreen forest. Conifers. Anyway, yeah. Talk about long distance relationship. I don't know. I think baby pine trees hold great resentment because they've never met their father. I don't know. To cross pollinate means one plant shares its gametes with another plant, resulting in offspring. It's a mixture of the two parents. Okay. We have time to get to evolution. This is a really good thing that happens here because genes don't remain the same. We want a lot of variation in genes. When populations of organisms, populations of plants, populations of bacteria, when their genes are all the same, they're very, very vulnerable to catastrophe. Okay? We want variation. He's drawing, right? Okay. I know, this is a lot of writing, I'm sorry. I try to minimize it. All right, you guys have done monohybrid crosses, most likely. If you've done IXL, if you've done IXL, then you have done this kind of thing, okay? If you've done sixth grade, you've done this kind of thing. We don't touch it. This is boring. These are four squares. Mendel allowed generation after generation of pea plants to self-pollinate, and this meant he knew that the two different types of pea plants were what we used to call pure breeds, and he'd start experimenting. Crosses that involve only one trait are called monohybrid crosses. We're not going to do these anymore, so you don't have to write it down. Mendel chose what would be the original parents for this monohybrid cross, and he would test them for him. It's really simple with him. He doesn't want to write just like, yo, he's going to be writing parents all the time. Nah, his symbol for parents, he just writes P. Okay? The P generation, the parents, all right? The kids are called F1. The first generation of offspring from the parents are called the F1. You call it the F1 generation all you want. You just write F1. Well, for pea plants? No, a few weeks. F stands for the old term filial, which means generation. Okay. No, this is in the 1800s. Okay, so parents, the P generation, we're going to be using a lot of codes and letters and all kinds of stuff. You say P, you just write P colon. Okay, these are the parents. You write F1. Oh, this is the result. Here are the kids for the parents. Okay, things we're going to be using the whole time. Like in a problem, I'm going to say, hey, what was the F1 generation? Okay, see the results of the two parents. Got you. First generation of offspring from the parents were designated as F1. What do you think the second generation is called? See, the guys, it's simple. He likes to keep things simple. He doesn't have time to waste with dumb things. Mendel's traits for the pea plants, his famous initial first cross, were tallness and shortness. Okay? So the traits technically are plant height. Okay? He knew that he had a whole bunch of pea plants that were always this tall. They would grow this tall off of the ground. And then there was another batch, they would grow about 3 feet. There's never an in-between. It was weird. So he's going to mate short with tall. And he says, well, according to this blending theory that all these farmers are talking about, they should be, tallest should be this, and the short one should be like this. They should all be about medium. Right? Mating a short plant with tall plant has got to lead to medium sized, halfway between short and tall. And this is what gets him interested. Because remember, he's got pure short, pure tall, and 100% tall. Now, as a obsessive compulsive statistician, I don't think he sleeps at night. He's like, no. I must have screwed something up. Huh? And he does it again. It happens exactly again. He's like, this is weird. I want to investigate this. Mendel took the F1 generation and mated them together. Now, you can't do this with animals. You can do rats do this, but they're not too bright. They're all inbred, goofy, right? Plants are designed to inbreed. They can do this. Animals aren't. Well, you get the F2 generation this way, the grandkids. So remember, P is parents, F1 are the kids, all right? And for plants, you can actually do is cross the kids. And animals don't do this. You're gonna have some special animals. It's true. If you visit a farm and you'll have barn cats, and cats will do this. They're interbreed and they're gonna be born, they got problems, physical problems. Yeah? Sure. So he gets the F2 generation, the grandchildren. Okay, remember, he crossed short with tall. They're 100% tall. So he crosses the 100% tall F1s, and he gets a really weird ratio. You can tell this, he's not sleeping at night. He's going, a quarter of the grandkids are short. Talking about P's. And 3/4, 75% of the grandkids are tall. You know, what? You know, it's not even half and half. This bothers him, and genetics is born. What happened was the F1 gen. Now he didn't know this. He didn't even know about DNA. Mendel didn't know about chromosomes. He didn't know it. He just knew. He called them factors. Okay. The F1 generation, the first kids, contain two separate copies of what today we call a gene, a segment of DNA. And this is where the most common thing that you've probably heard of: dominant genes versus recessive genes. Dominant gene expresses itself, meaning it's seen, it works, it turns something on in an organism, okay, as long as one copy of it's there. While a recessive gene, it needs two of itself in order to activate this thing. The second rule he came up with is that it says the genes somehow separated when the sex cells, the gametes, were formed, and this is advanced stuff. Each gamete carried only one version of the gene controlling height. So here it is, alleles. You can call them alleles, but we're going to make fun of you if you say it like that. Alleles in the Punnett Square. Sounds like a bad musical group from the 60s. And now, introducing, right out of Manhattan, of the alleles in the Punnett Square! You know, slightly different genes that code for the same part of the body. Okay? We're all going to have multiple genes that'll control eye color. Okay? But then there's a green gene, there's a blue gene, no pun intended, brown genes, and there's all kinds of combinations of in between. So, while they all control color, there's different possibilities of color that you can get, all the way to clear. You know what albinism is? Also called albinoism, is the same thing. An albino is an individual, an animal, a human's an animal, by the way. There's no pigment. They have a unique combination of genes so that every single one of their genes that controls pigment is left kind of blank. There is nothing. So the person is born snow white skinned, snow white hair, and red eyes because the iris, the colored portion of the eye, is clear. So you see through the eye and you see the blood vessels in the back of the eye. When the light comes in, it bounces out. And red-eyed freak! It's like, okay, I'm sure like in medieval times, I'll bet in medieval Europe, these people were beaten and killed. I'm sure. You know, he's the devil! You know, okay, all right, they had no idea, right? But an albino, a true albino has no pigment, okay? And these are individuals that, regardless of their ethnicity, they've got to be careful from the sun because they have no means by which to protect their skin from UV rays and skin cancer. Okay, often growing up, they're singled out. This is, I mean, because it's shocking. Okay, and they typically will dye their hair to blend in, and they'll wear colored contact lenses to kind of blend in, because we all know that, you know, kids aren't cruel growing up and won't make fun of them at all, right? Right? But you're just born with this. You're born with this fascinating combination of genes that is highly improbable, and yet that you're it. It's pretty cool. Different alleles cause different versions of a trait to be seen. So Mendel, here you go. Heterogeneous and homogeneous. These are key terms. In this case, I mean, Mendel was simple. He says, okay, the tall plant gene, I'm going to call it a capital T because it's dominant. If an uppercase T, a dominant gene that codes for tallness, goes up against another gene that's recessive, shortness, the tallness gene always wins. It's like a bully on the playground taking kids' lunch money. All right? If uppercase T, the dominant gene, goes up and is combined with a recessive gene, dominant gene always wins. Always, 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 always. We have special names for this. The only way for the recessive gene to win, for the obsessive gene, the lowercase letter, to have its trait expressed, meaning to have it switched on, is if it has another lowercase letter. If an uppercase letter is present anywhere near it, well, it'll be the uppercase letter's trait. One parent has two genes, okay? Because that parent inherited it from its two parents. It's always two. The other parent had two lowercase t genes. So one parent has two uppercase t genes, the other one has two lowercase t genes, okay? One parent had a homologous pair, let's say pair number 3. Both of these two chromosomes was the information about how tall or short the plant was going to be. It just so happens that the parent with the two dominant tallness genes, okay, was present. Let's look at this. These are the key words. Having two dominant genes. And we're going to use this term over again, all the time. This is the most important part of the whole unit. Uppercase T, recombined alleles are called homozygous dominant. In Latin, the word homo means all of the same. Hence the term, okay? Two of the same. Homozygous dominant. The dominant refers to, oh, they're uppercase. Okay? Two of the same uppercase. That's essentially what homozygous dominant translates to. Two of the same letters uppercase. This means that two dominant alleles are going to control what we call something called the phenotype of a certain trait. A genotype are the letters. They're the uppercase T's and lowercase t's, they're the genes. Genotype controls phenotype. You probably learned this. Phenotype is the physical total appearance of an organism. The outcome. Genotype is the before, the genes. Phenotype is the after, what the genes have made. Genotype controls phenotype, okay? You see this all the time. All the time. This means the two dominant alleles control the phenotype of a certain trait, in this case, homozygous dominant. You'd have two uppercase T's. Two lowercase t's, it's a different word. And these could be lowercase p's. These could be lowercase r's. These could be whatever letter you want. Two lowercase t's recombined alleles are called homozygous, two of the same, recessive. So they are two of the same. Yes, they're present, but they're the non-dominant type. They're the weaker type, recessive. Those genes are semi-switched off. Homozygous recessive. This means that two recessive alleles control the phenotype of a certain trait. Homozygous dominant, two uppercase letters. Homozygous recessive, two lowercase letters. Well, let's mix them together. You have an uppercase and a lowercase. There's a word for that. Yep. I'll give you time. Like I said, terms we're going to be using for the next 3 weeks. So, I know it hurts. I know it hurts, but we're not going to write forever, I promise. But these problems are big. They're difficult. You know, heterozygous, uppercase T and combined with lowercase t. Uppercase T wins, but lowercase t is still there. Suck it up. Suck it up. You can handle it. Uppercase T, uppercase T, lowercase t combined alleles are called heterozygous. It means mixture. Mixture. Ever heard of it? Heterogeneous mixture? It means two different things mixed together. That's all it means. This means that an organism's genotype for a trait is a mix of both dominant and recessive allele. This means that the dominant allele's phenotype will be seen. So the phenotype will appear dominant, but the gene controlling the possibility of the other trait, shortness, it's secretly there. So it won't show up in that organism, but it can be passed on. It could show up later. So this dominance, it kind of masks, it hides the fact that the other gene is there. And this person who's this pea plant that's uppercase T, lowercase t, it's got the tallness gene. It also has a shortness gene. It doesn't mean that this pea plant is kind of tall, mostly tall. No, it's just as tall as one that has uppercase T, uppercase t. Standing right next to it, you couldn't tell which one was uppercase T, lowercase t, and which one was uppercase T, uppercase t. It really hides it, okay? And Mendel works this out in his head. And he starts testing these things. And he says, you know what? This explains why you can cross tall with tall and get this 3/4 tall stuff, 1/4 short, okay? And you've probably learned this before. But it's the most important part of this whole thing today is learning these terms: homozygous, heterozygous, homozygous dominant, homozygous recessive, and this heterozygous thing. Have you noticed in all the notes I don't have you writing, heterozygous dominant? Because here, I'll be right back. Don't panic. Because here. Uh-oh, there you go. Wake up, board. Wake up. Because here, you have this one up on this one, and it appears tall. So we don't have to say this is heterozygous tall or heterozygous dominant. It, uppercase T is there. We just automatically know this one wins. This will be seen. Okay? So we don't have to say heterozygous dominant. Okay? Back to this. It's accepted in heterozygosity. Big letter win. That's the most you're gonna write. You got it? You're clear? It hurts? Sorry. All right. Take a break for a minute. Since these homologs shuffle randomly, any combination of uppercase T and lowercase t can result. Something called meiosis. Shuffles up the chromosomes so that only one of these is always present. We're not going to do these. Here are these terms. Genotype refers to the alleles an individual receives at fertilization. These are the unique genes you get, okay, at the moment of conception, essentially. And you can't change them for the moment. Your entire life, your unique combination, that's you. That's what you get. You cannot change it. All right? That's the genotype. That's your unique genes for you. And it's a combination to be sure. All the chromosomes you need to form all the parts of your body, but also with slight differences in them, the unique combination is called the genotype. There it is. Once an egg has been fertilized, an organism is it's stuck with that combination for life. It can't be changed. Genotype. Fortunately, it can't be changed. Otherwise, genetics problems would be just a pain. Much more of a pain. They're always a pain. Okay. Genotype. How many of you have ever seen that word before today? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Anybody else back there? Genotype, you never seen it? Okay. Okay, that's cool. I'm just trying to gauge what y'all know. You ever heard of the word phenotype? That you've heard more of? More. See, good. But not according to this. They just knew. They just learned genotype. The rest of them is good. There's your phenotype. This is how you remember. We're almost done. This refers to the physical for physical, pH for phenotype. It's physically the results. Phenotype refers to the physical appearance of the individual. Could be a pea plant, could be a whale, could be a human, could be I don't know, a bat, could be a bacterium. This refers to the physical appearance of an individual that results from its genotype. Okay, genotype leads to phenotype. But here we freeze that. Go down here. Love it, man. Sorry, man. Okay. I'm going to set you up for the beginning of how to do dihybrids today. Keep rolling. Hmm? Well, we're going to start the fundamentals today. Now, got to do some fundamentals today. There's no reason to wait. The more practice we get in, the better we're going to be. Get phenotype? Who doesn't have phenotype? Groovy. All right. Example problem 1. Green alleles are dominant. Tall alleles are dominant as well. All right. Here, switch this up. Second. It's not video capture.